What if the smartest mind at one of the world's top universities didn't belong to a celebrated professor or a brilliant graduate student? What if it belonged to a kid from the city's toughest neighborhood, a young man who spent his nights mopping the floors? This is the story of Will Hunting, a janitor with a wounded past and a mind so powerful it could change the world if he only let it. Our story begins in South Boston, a place where loyalty is everything. Will's friends aren't just friends. They're the only family he's ever really known. They work construction, drink together, and look out for each other. It's a simple, predictable life. By day, Will punches the clock as a janitor at MIT, one of the most prestigious universities on the planet. He's invisible, just another face sweeping the long, empty hallways. But when the sun goes down and the campus empties out, Will's true life begins. He doesn't go out partying. Instead, he loses himself in books-thick, complex textbooks on mathematics, history, and science. He doesn't do it for a grade or a degree. No one has ever asked him to. He does it because numbers make sense. They're logical, predictable, and they offer him a comfort that people never could. One evening, a new challenge appears. On a blackboard in a quiet hallway, a renowned mathematics professor, Gerald Lambeau, posts a problem for his graduate students. This isn't just any problem. It's a Fourier analysis equation so difficult, it took him and his colleagues years to solve. It's a challenge meant to find the next great mathematical mind. Days pass, and the problem remains unsolved. The students are stumped. Then, one morning, Professor Lambeau walks down the hall and stops dead in his tracks. There, written on the board, is the complete, elegant solution. But who wrote it? No student comes forward to claim the credit. Lambeau is baffled. He assumes it must be a prank or perhaps a rival professor playing a game. He decides to up the ante. He posts a new problem, one even more difficult, one that only a handful of people in the entire world could solve. He sets a trap, waiting to see who the mystery genius is. Later that night, he returns to the hallway and sees someone at the board, chalk in hand. It's Will, the janitor. Lambeau confronts him, thinking he's just a kid vandalizing the board. He yells at him to get away, chasing him off. But as Will runs, Lambeau turns back to the board and realizes the truth. The impossible solution was right there, half finished. The janitor wasn't defacing the board. He was solving a problem that had stumped the greatest minds of his generation. Professor Lambeau has just discovered a once-in-a-lifetime talent, hidden in plain sight. But a genius mind doesn't erase a painful past. Will's intellect is a fortress, but outside its walls, his life is chaotic. One day, he and his friends run into a guy who used to bully Will back in kindergarten. The old wounds are still raw. Words are exchanged, and suddenly, a full-blown street fight erupts. Will's reflexes are quick, honed by years of survival, but his anger is even faster. He fights with a ferocity that shocks everyone, including his own friends. The police arrive and Will is arrested. It's not his first run-in with the law, and this time the charges are serious. His future looks bleak, destined for a jail cell. The world is about to lose a mind it never even knew it had. But Professor Lambeau hasn't forgotten about the janitor. After searching for him, he discovers Will's arrest. He sees not a criminal, but a brilliant mind on the verge of being extinguished. Lambeau goes to the courthouse and makes the judge an unprecedented offer. He proposes a deal that could change everything. Will can avoid jail time, but only if he agrees to two strict conditions. First, he must meet with Lambeau twice a week to work on advanced mathematics. Second, and this is the non-negotiable part, he must attend mandatory therapy sessions. Will is cornered. The choice is between a prison cell and a classroom. Reluctantly, he agrees. The math part is easy. He'll solve Lambeau's problems, no question. But therapy? Opening up to a stranger about his life, his feelings, his past. That's a problem he has no interest in solving. For Will, numbers are safe. People are dangerous. He sees therapy not as a path to healing, but as a battlefield where he must defend himself at all costs. And so, the experiment begins. Will shows up for his math sessions with Lambeau, dazzling the professor with his intuitive grasp of concepts that take others a lifetime to master. He's not just solving problems. He's seeing mathematics in a way no one has before. But the therapy sessions are a disaster. One by one, Will meets with the city's most respected therapists, and one by one, he dismantles them. He doesn't just resist, he attacks. He uses his photographic memory and razor-sharp intellect to dig into their personal lives, reading their books overnight and using their own psychological theories against them. He mocks their insecurities, exposes their failures, and reduces them to frustrated, stammering messes. One therapist leaves the room in tears. Another practically runs out, refusing to ever see him again. Will turns each session into a contest of wills, and he always wins. No one can get close. No one can break through the fortress he's built around his heart. Professor Lambeau is at his wit's end. All the top therapists have given up. Just when it seems like the deal will fall apart and Will be sent to jail, Lambeau turns to his last resort, an old college friend named Sean Maguire. Sean isn't a celebrated author or a high-priced therapist. He's a community college professor who also grew up in South Boston. He understands the world Will comes from. Their first session is a confrontation. Will immediately goes on the offensive. He looks around Sean's office, notices a painting, and begins his psychological assault. He deduces that Sean's wife died and he uses that immense pain as a weapon, making cruel, cutting remarks. He's trying to break Sean just like all the others, but Sean doesn't flinch. He remains calm, observant. He listens. And then he slowly, quietly walks over to Will. He doesn't yell. He tells Will he's just a kid. A scared kid who knows nothing about real life, about loss, about love. He grabs him, looks him straight in the eye, and says that all the books in the world can't teach him what it feels like to be human. For the first time, Will is completely shaken. Someone isn't afraid of his mind. Someone sees straight through the genius to the terrified boy hiding behind it. Outside of therapy, Will's world remains unchanged. His friends, Chucky, Morgan, and Billy, are his sanctuary. With them, he can just be Will. They drink, they laugh, they get into trouble. It's a world built on simple loyalty, a place where no one asks deep questions or tries to dig into his past. It's comfortable, it's predictable, it's safe. But Sean recognizes that this safety has become a cage. It's a world that allows Will to avoid facing his own potential and his own pain. He can be a construction worker and a bar brawler for the rest of his life, and his friends will never challenge him to be more. They love him for who he is, but they don't see the genius that Lambeau and Sean see. Sean refuses to let Will hide. In their sessions, he doesn't use psychological jargon or analytical frameworks. He just talks. He tells Will stories about his own life, about his late wife, about love and regret. He shares his own vulnerabilities, showing Will what it means to be truly open. He challenges Will's intellectual arrogance, pointing out that knowing facts about something is not the same as experiencing it. You can read every book ever written about the Sistine Chapel, but that doesn't tell you what it feels like to stand there and look up. Slowly, painstakingly, Sean begins to chip away at the emotional walls Will has spent a lifetime building. He starts to expose the deep-seated trauma that Will has buried under layers of anger and intelligence. As we reach this point, Will stands at a critical crossroads, caught between two conflicting worlds. On one side is the life he's always known, the comfort of his friends, the safety of emotional isolation, a world where he is in complete control. On the other side is a terrifying new path, one that involves trust, vulnerability, and the possibility of real human connection. It's the world Sean is offering him, a world where he might finally heal, but only if he's willing to face the demons he's been running from his entire life. The choice is his: remain safe in the prison of his past, or take the terrifying leap into an unknown future. But beneath his incredible intellect lies a deep well of pain and fear, a wound so raw that he pushes away anyone who tries to get close. This isn't just a story about a smart kid. It's a story about the walls we build to protect ourselves and the courage it takes to finally tear them down. This is a story about therapy, friendship, and the transformative power of 4 simple words. It's not your fault. Will Hunting is a walking paradox. He can solve mathematical problems that stump the world's greatest minds, yet he's emotionally terrified. Whenever he's faced with real love, a life-changing opportunity, or just the uncertainty of the future, he retreats into his head. He starts rationalizing everything, listing probabilities, analyzing potential outcomes, and intellectualizing his pain. Why? Because for Will, emotions are a battlefield he refuses to step onto. He's convinced he'll lose. His therapist, Sean Maguire, sees this defense mechanism for what it is: a shield. Sean recognizes that Will lives in a state of preemptive abandonment. He expects people to leave him, so he pushes them away first. creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. He uses his genius as a weapon, not to build a future, but to dismantle any chance of one. When he meets Skylar, a smart and loving woman who truly sees him, his first instinct is to run. He lies about his past, hides his true self, and eventually breaks up with her, all to avoid the possibility of being rejected later. Sean challenges this pattern relentlessly. He doesn't engage with Will's intellectual games. Instead, he goes straight for the heart. He points out how Will's entire worldview is built on books and theories, not real experience. He calls him out for being a cocky, scared shitless kid. Every rational argument Will throws at Sean is just another layer of armor, another brick in the wall he's built around his heart. And Sean is determined to break through one brick at a time. He knows that behind the bravado is a boy who is hurt, and that boy is the one who needs healing. While Sean is chipping away at Will's defenses in therapy, a different kind of intervention is happening on the streets of South Boston. It comes from Will's best friend, Chucky Sullivan. Now Chucky isn't a therapist or a professor. He's a construction worker, and his loyalty to Will is absolute. But he's also not blind to Will's self-destruction. In one of the most powerful and honest moments in the entire story, Chucky delivers a brutal wake-up call. He looks Will in the eye and tells him, "You're sitting on a winning lottery ticket, and you're too damn scared to cash it in. This isn't an attack, it's an act of love." Chucky explains that his dream, his greatest wish, is to one day knock on Will's door and find that he's gone. Gone to do something great, something worthy of his talent. For Chucky and his friends, the thought of Will still being in the same neighborhood, working the same dead-end jobs in 20 years, isn't a comfort, it's a tragedy. He says, "That'd be an insult to us." This hits Will harder than any therapy session ever could. It's a moment of profound clarity. He realizes that staying small, staying safe, isn't just hurting himself, it's a betrayal of the people who love him most. This isn't about intellect anymore. It's about courage. Chucky's words force Will to confront a terrifying question. What if his greatest fear isn't failure, but success? The breakthrough finally comes during a pivotal therapy session. The atmosphere is different this time. Sean decides to share something deeply personal, his own trauma. He quietly reveals that he was a victim of child abuse, abused by his alcoholic father. He shows Will the scars, both literal and metaphorical. Suddenly, the power dynamic in the room shifts completely. For the first time, Will isn't the smartest person in the room. He isn't the one with the upper hand. He's just a wounded kid sitting across from a man who understands his pain in a way no one else ever could. The intellectual games stop. The shields come down. Sean looks at Will, his voice gentle but firm, and repeats the words Will has never allowed himself to hear. "Let alone believe. It's not your fault." Will, taken aback, tries to brush it off with a casual, "Yeah, I know." But Sean doesn't let him. He moves closer, his gaze unwavering, and says it again. "It's not your fault." Will's defenses kick in. He gets angry, pushes Sean away, tells him to stop. But Sean persists, repeating the phrase over and over. "It's not your fault. It's not your fault." And then something inside Will breaks. The walls he spent a lifetime building finally crumble. The anger melts away, replaced by a wave of raw, unfiltered grief. Years of silent suffering, of believing he was broken and to blame for the horrors of his childhood, pour out of him in a torrent of tears. He collapses into Sean's arms, not as a genius or a tough guy from Southie, but as a child who desperately needed to be held. In that moment of shared vulnerability, Will's healing truly begins. Freed from the crushing weight of blame, Will starts to see the world and himself in a new light. The future is no longer a threat, but a canvas of possibilities. He begins to make choices based on potential, not fear. He reconsiders the job opportunities he once scoffed at, realizing they aren't sellouts, but step-ups. He accepts a position at a prestigious firm, a job that finally matches his incredible talent and offers him a life beyond the familiar, confining streets of South Boston. His relationship with Sean transforms too. Sean is no longer just a therapist. He has become the father figure Will never had. He offers guidance, not as a professional, but as someone who genuinely cares about Will's happiness. He encourages him to embrace the unknown, to take risks, and to pursue what his heart truly wants. Sean knows that Will's genius is a gift, but his true potential lies in his capacity to love and be loved. The mathematical equations were a safe harbor, but now it's time for Will to set sail into the unpredictable waters of real life. He's finally learning that his past doesn't have to define his future. In the final beautiful chapter of his journey, Will makes a decision that is entirely his own. It's not a choice driven by fear or obligation, but by hope. He has the job, the new life, the clean slate, but there's one piece missing. He turns down the high-paying job. He gets into the beat-up car his friends gifted him for his birthday, and he drives. Where's he going? California. To find Skylar, the girl he pushed away, the girl who saw the real him and wasn't scared. He's not running from his past anymore. He's running toward his future. He leaves a simple letter for Sean, a final, heartfelt acknowledgement of their journey together. The note says it all. I had to go see about a girl. It's a line Sean once told him. And it signifies that Will has finally learned the most important lesson, that love is worth the risk. The boy who once hid behind complex equations and a tough exterior has finally learned to solve the most difficult problem of all, his own life. He gets in his car and drives into a future he is finally ready to create for himself on his own terms. It's a powerful reminder that no matter how deep our wounds are, we all have the capacity to heal, to love, and to choose our own path to a new beginning. Thanks so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, let me know in the comments. And for more deep dives into the stories that move us, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.